Hello, and welcome back to week 4 of our series. I'm Tammy Miller, and I am a nutrition coach. And we have Mandy with us again, who is an amazing physical therapist. And I'm really excited to hear what she has to say about the physiology of diabetes today. So we're going to be talking about diabetes, and we're going to start off with the increase in the incidence of diabetes. So we've all heard of diabetes. We've all heard of type 2 diabetes. And type 2 diabetes is the diabetes that we have that is not a genetic component, and it shows up due to diet. And we have had a huge increase in type 2 diabetes in our society. So why is this happening from a nutrition and a food perspective? What diabetes is the release of insulin. So when we eat sugar, our body releases insulin, which is necessary so that all the cells of our body can uptake that glucose to make energy. And that's what keeps us going. That's what keeps all of our organs functioning. That was what keeps us functioning in all reality. So we need sugar, and we do need insulin. But as we talked last week, once we started to remove salt from our diet and started eating more processed foods, the amount of sugar that goes into these foods is increasing significantly. We have so much added sugar, and if people have never seen Jamie Oliver and never seen his TED Talk on the amount of sugar that children just get from the chocolate milk that they're served at school, I strongly suggest you look at that, and you look at and watch the wheelbarrow full of sugar that gets dumped on the stage. That is added sugar. That is sugar that we don't need, that's added to food to make it taste better. Well, if sugar, when it comes into our system, insulin is released to help our cells bring it up. If I have a lot more sugar, I'm going to have a lot more insulin. And unfortunately, what happens is when we have too much of a hormone that our body makes, our cells start to ignore it and start to say, oh yeah, I know you're there, but I don't care because I see you too much. It's kind of like, I equate it to the idea of a car alarm. Back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, when car alarms first came out, if you heard a car alarm anywhere, everybody turned around because they knew that that car was being stolen. They wanted to see what was going on. Now, car alarms, if the wind is strong enough, car alarms go off. Think about, when was the last time you heard a car alarm go off and actually turned around to look at it? Because we hear them so often, we don't care anymore. And that's the same with our cells. Because they see insulin so often, they don't care anymore. Unfortunately, that makes it so that our cells don't bring in that energy and don't bring in that glucose, can't make that energy. But that glucose has to go someplace. So our liver, which is an incredible organ, does so many different things for us. One of the things it does is it has the ability to store glucose in the form of energy. It's called glycogen. It's quick energy if we need it between meals. But even the liver can't store the amount of sugar that's coming into our bodies. So the only other thing the liver can do is make it into triacylglycerols, which are the fats that are stored in our adipose tissue or our fat cells. And so not only are we seeing an increase in insulin resistance, which is a problem because our cells aren't getting what's necessary to make energy, but we're also seeing an increase in adiposity, or obesity is another way to say it, in our society. Now, we now know food-wise why that happens. So, Mandy, my question to you is, what does this do to us physiologically? How does this affect my body, my exercise, and really my health and well-being?
Yeah, so there's actually several things that are highly attributed or you see way more often when you know that someone is diabetic. So the big thing is it actually affects some of our joint lining and affects its ability to to stay at a good plasticity. So like the stretchy factor. So there's a particular shoulder condition that's called frozen shoulder, and it comes on, and we're not sure exactly why, but it comes on, your body actually starts to attack some of its own tissue. And the thought is that with diabetes, because your immune system starts to go down a bit, that it's just a malfunctioning of the overall system. So that's one thing that's more attributed to diabetes. But the other thing that I found really interesting with some recent reading I've been doing is that as you start to put those fat stores down, so like Tammy was talking about, you eat the sugar, the glucose, and you have so much your body doesn't need it anymore, and you can't store it as glycogen, so the liver is going to store it as fat. Well, that fat has to go somewhere, and it doesn't always just go to the same place. So your body's going to put it in different areas. So they've actually been looking at tendinitis. So Achilles, like your ankle tendon, your shoulder tendons, and they've been able to sample those tendons, and the amount of fat that is actually within those tendons correlates, or it directly relates back to the people who have higher levels of sugar circulating throughout their blood, or are insulin resistant, which is another way of saying they're diabetics. And these people aren't, for a large part, those are all actually type 2 diabetics, because that's when that fat storage is really seen. So you actually are more susceptible to getting, and we talked about this a little bit with high blood pressure, how your arteries affecting these small tendons. So you see like the smaller tendons in your body, which are also really used. So that would be more of your shoulder rotator cuff muscles. Mm-hmm. They need to have a good blood supply. They also can't have a lot of swelling or inflammation or fat stores around them, or you start to immediately feel, or pretty quickly feel, some of that friction that causes. There's this not very much space in there. And so if you limit how much that has, then when you do something that's overhead, and say for example, you get a new house, you're going to paint up high for a day, that really is going to affect that shoulder that has like less room in it, because you have those fat stores. The tendons perhaps a little bit weaker, because when you do have diabetes, you're not typically getting the appropriate amount of exercise. That's something that even a small amount of exercise actually helps your liver. That helps you to, and Tammy can talk about this more too, or answer any questions. If you have any questions, you can post those and we'll certainly answer them. But even that little bit of exercise helps your body to use that free circulating glucose, that free circulating energy. Your muscles use it. And so that actually helps pretty quickly with regulating some part of that insulin resistance, helping with that diabetes. Just that little bit, that 5%, that 10-minute walk you can take at the end of the day actually really does significantly contribute to changing your risk factors for these problems. Not having good proper use of your shoulder or of your ankle, I can tell you I see that all the time, and that you can't do things like shower, you can't brush your hair. I mean, like, it's cooking, cleaning, putting your wallet in your back pocket, which is not a lady thing to do, but a guy thing to do, tucking your shirt in, putting belts on, putting your bra on. All these things are really difficult and super painful to do if your shoulders hurt. And this is something you can do to prevent shoulder pain in the future. And that really just goes back to the food that the processed food that you're putting in your body, and the amount of physical activity that you get on a regular basis. And so it's not so much about, oh man, I have to become this CrossFit athlete, or I need to start running marathons. It's about taking off. And if you haven't watched our first 2 videos on goal setting, it's really about breaking down what you want, where you want to be, into those smaller chunk size goals, those smarter goals, so that you can just introduce little bits that are very achievable, so you can have that success. You can see that success and check those boxes, because that way you can start feeling good about the journey that you're on. So, and that's the biggest thing with diabetes is it just really impacts your ability to function, and just live life like everybody wants to. So and it's totally modifiable by what you eat and what you do. So
Excellent. Thank you. And I love bringing back the SMART goals. And I love, you mentioned just taking a 10-minute walk every day.
yeah,
And that is something that is definitely specific and measurable, actionable. And
yeah,
that is something that I can go out and I can just say at lunch, I know I have 30 minutes for lunch. If I take 10 minutes of that to just walk around the building that I work in, or walk around the block of my house if I work out of my house, and being able to take that, it's true. Your muscles, as soon as they're working, they're going to want more glucose. They're going to want more energy because it takes energy for them to move you around. And then that's going to pull some of that glucose out of your system to really help with that high glucose.
yep, yeah.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much again for joining Mandy and I on our journey through this series. We are happy to get you to this point, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks so much.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.